One of the things that ministers, I think, struggle to understand if they've gone up through getting a Bible degree and their very first full-time job was a ministry job, if they never had a secular job, it can be hard to understand what life in a non-ministerial job can really be like. On the other hand, for the congregation, it can be very hard to understand what ministry life is like. It's very clear that ministers live in a glass house. It's very clear that ministers are held to a high standard. Not only the minister, but their family. Sometimes the spouse is treated as an employee who is unpaid. The kids are scrutinized. Everything reflects back on the minister and their character. We can talk about whether or not that's fair, but the point I really want to make, and if this is helpful to you, I'd love for you to hit that like button. Ministers live in a world where all their circles, all their spheres of influence and relationality all overlap. So your job, are your friends, are your church home, are your spiritual family, are your location, etc. Your kids' school, your kids' friends, it's all locked in to that ministry profession. And so other people in the church who have secular jobs, if they get let go from their job, if you lose your job, you don't lose your church, typically, unless you have to move to get another employment. Maybe finding another job takes a few weeks, a few months. But in ministry, finding a new job can take 6 to 9 months. New church hires take a church 9 to 12 months. And so ministers get in this very precarious situation where getting let go means you lose your church family. We don't want you to attend here anymore. That's very frequently said to ministers who are let go. So you lose your church family, you lose your friends, you lose your job, you feel ashamed, you feel let down, you feel a great burden, you feel depressed. And on top of that, you probably have to move. Your kids have to find a new school, find a new home. I mean, every major stressor on the scale of stress, don't get over 100 points, you're 500 points because every single part of your support system has been ripped out when you're a minister and you have to make this move. You can't just stay in the same town and keep the same church and keep the same friends, keep the same school for your kids, etc. It all gets ripped out. And then oftentimes, if there's not a long enough period of severance, then a minister is in a position where they are not able to pay the bills for months because it can literally take 6 months to a year to land that next ministry job. So I want to share this to say, please be kind to your ministers. Love them well. And if your minister is fired, well, maybe there needs to be some conversation about whether or not the minister can still stay within the church if they want to. Not all ministers want to do that, but sometimes they do, and there's an awful lot of hurt among ministers who are literally kicked out of their spiritual family because they lost their job. And this actually boils down to the real point, which is we have viewed ministry as a careered job with student loan debt and graduate degrees, which is not all horribly wrong or bad. That's great equipping, but we've so professionalized it that we've lost our sense of calling to a community. So then the church itself views the ministry position almost like a secular hire, secular employment, where the criteria, 3 to 5 years experience, graduate degree. It's just like you were reading a business job description on LinkedIn when you read these church websites on job openings. What ends up happening is church leadership begins viewing the hire like a business hire, because the people who are appointed as elders are often appointed who are business people, and they're leading the church like they led a business because that's their paradigm of leadership. And I believe that that's been allowed to take place because we've used the pastoral lists of elder qualifications as a checklist, but we really miss the heart and soul of the character of an elder shepherd who cares for the flock. As long as you're not divorced, or as long as maybe your kids are faithful. If they're, young, if they're older, then it's kind of we make an exception. I mean, even this checklist is kind of a little bit nebulous, and often what we find are elders who will not appoint new elders because they failed to meet the checklist on some of the same items that the current elders failed to meet on the checklist. This is all gets spun into a very secular mindset rather than a spiritual discernment mindset over what makes God most happy, what glorifies him the most, who has God called to this position. And I'm afraid that young people coming up, and there's a view of seeing ministry like a career, and it is a career. It can be a career. People can do quite well with this, but we've lost this sense, I think, of a divine calling to a location, to a spiritual community, etc. And I think that's really problematic and troublesome. So there's a few things that we really need to do. We need to hit that like button. We need to love our ministers well. We need to really, really care for them, support them, even especially when they get let go. We need to be in their corner. The last thing that you need to do is watch this video, because it's going to talk a little bit more about some of the firing procedures that take place in churches, and it's really a troubling thing. And I really like for people to be aware of some of the things that go on behind the scenes. And I say that very lovingly, but I appreciate your engagement in the video. Thanks for watching to the end. God bless, and we'll see you soon.